Brought to you by the Rugby Outlet Mall, equipping you for freedom and connection through rugby. Find out more at rugbyoutletmall.com. Hey, what's up, everybody? This is GiftTime and Bailey. Welcome to another great episode of Grow Rugby, where we talk to rugby people and people that can also help in developing the opportunity and network that rugby has to provide. I hope you guys are having another good week. I hope it's been a great weekend for you. I know it's really tough because we're about to go into like real kind of quarantine with this coronavirus. I mean, everybody's talking about it. So many confusion, so many things. But just note that it's not as bad as the situation isn't as bad as you think, and it's not as great as you want it to be. It's just something that we're gonna have to deal with for a little bit of time. But hey, you know, that's kind of how it goes with anything else. You just kind of deal until you figure out what is the full solution, and you know, God willing, the solution is going to end up coming a lot faster than what they're trying to predict it to be, because I don't know if my body can handle 2 months of being in some variation of a lockdown, even if it's not like, I mean, here in Louisiana, it's really loose. Like, it's basically, you can't do any real leisure activities in terms of, like, destinations, like bars and movie theaters and salons and barbershops and whatnot are closed, but, you know, you can still walk outside, get groceries. Don't gather around too many people at one time, but it doesn't sound like they're going to stop you from going to another person's place or location or to see something. So, it's... I mean, like I said, it's not as bad as we want it to. It's not as bad as it could be, but it's not as great as we want it to be. So we'll get there. But in the meantime, hopefully you guys can kind of enjoy what we have to offer. And today's guest is definitely one of my favorites. If you watch USA Rugby, particularly USA Women's Rugby, you know who this is. The great Naya Tapper is going to be our guest for today. She was awesome, really hilarious. Really fun to be able to talk to. She gave a lot of jewels. Like, if you're not kind of picking up on some of the things that she's doing, I don't know how much more obvious you could have it, even if it's slamming you right in the face. So, but she gave us a lot. She gave a lot, and it's really nice to see where her path is going. You know, many have probably heard her story, but, you know, sometimes it's nice to get a different perspective on it. So, I hope you guys really do like this. Like, enjoy. Like, you have nothing else to do. You know, take some stuff in, and then, you know, go visit the stuff that she has. Like, all her websites and stuff like that. Naya on fire. You'll get it. You'll get it in the podcast. But while you guys are at it, before you start kicking in, please take the time to like GiftTime Rugby on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. Yeah, I think that's it. Yeah. That's the ones primarily. And, you know, if you guys like to see things that are a little bit more culturally specific, you guys can go look at HBCU Rugby Classic and look at the HBCU Rugby Classic on IG, Facebook, HBCU Rugby on Twitter. So it's all fun. Enjoy yourselves. And without further ado, Naya Tapper.
Grow rugby, grow rugby, grow rugby, grow
Let go to rock.
grow rugby, grow rugby, grow rugby, grow
Let go to rock.
What's up, everybody? I'm happy to have a great guest, one of the VIP guests. They're all VIP guests, but it's another VIP guest. The USA Rugby Women's Elite, the winger, the Olympian, Naya Tapper. Naya, thanks for coming on. I appreciate it.
Thanks for having me. Also, just so you know, I'm not an Olympian yet. I haven't been yet.
Okay, all right.
Don't want a false claim.
Look, man, that's clout chase, all right?
I know, right?
We'll worry about the caps later. No.
Yeah.
Oh, future Olympian barring coronavirus intake.
Hopefully not.
Oh, no, I appreciate you taking the time. You know, it was I gotta say, it was really great getting to talk to you a little bit at LA Sevens. I'm not gonna lie, like, it was so obviously we've been friends on Facebook for a little bit, so that was
Yeah.
already you knew that, and then it was funny because I remember way back when you were in college, one of my guys interviewed you too, my guy Ryan Flynn. This was way back, maybe like 2014, 2015, and he
Yeah.
did it for one of our player spotlight articles. You know,
I
before the
remember that. That was a long time ago.
Yo, you know what I'm saying? Like, yo, it's crazy how much time passes by, but like it feels like it was yesterday, and then at the same time, it's like, oh, it was like that was like a while ago.
Long, yeah. It was a long
But
time.
for you, just as you're entering into the Olympic year, you've built this notoriety, and we'll delve into it. But where are you at in this moment? Like, where are you at from a mental, physical, emotional standpoint as it's been through this journey of rugby that you've been on these last several years?
Um, I think for me, it's just been kind of a growth mindset and going up and down with that of hitting a plateau sometimes of getting complacent and then having to get a kick in the butt of, okay, you have to keep going up. You have to keep getting better. Like, this is not where your potential ends. So I think that's kind of been the journey for me, is just always trying to find ways to get better, whether that's physically with different skills or mentally with just trying to find ways to push myself or to find people to hold me accountable to push myself, like my coaches and my teammates. So that's kind of how it's been for me. I started at a pretty low level coming into the professional realm of rugby and have had to build myself from there, physically, just who I am as a rugby athlete, and then my brand as well, of making the decision of, okay, I've made my mark in this sport. Where do I go from here to make sure that after the sport, I can still contribute to it and have a name in it without having to be on the field?
To be honest, it's great to be able to get into that point. Oh my goodness, this cat does not want to be annoying. All right, so I got these two cats. One that's chill, this other one that's like addicted to being touched, and so she's trying to force her way in. It's very wrong. It's very wrong. But no, I wanted to actually really get into, especially when it comes to the brand, because we've heard the story, and I'll get a little bit of background, obviously, for those who don't know, because we're talking hopefully with a bit of an audience that has maybe not as much rugby knowledge as we do. But when it
Yeah.
comes to brand, for me, I have always been a massive advocate. I've always said it out loud and a little bit here in bits and pieces in written form. But I've always been a big advocate of rugby players, especially in the U.S., utilizing a personal brand off of the platform of this international one. And it's always interesting because within the rugby community, it's known, and everybody kind of has a little bit of a bubble figure where it's like, oh, you're known in here, so you must be known everywhere. You're known
Yeah.
around the world. But the reality is, it's not always that. But
Mhm.
one thing I really appreciated when you were doing it, especially, was how you use your social media and Instagram, and then subsequently when you actually really started flexing brands a lot more, because it now made it more of like the development of a star, something that I've always believed rugby needs, and annoyingly seems to like have this humble concept that it doesn't. So for you, like, what was the motivation setup that was like, okay, I want to start leading into this personal brand mechanism?
Mhm. To be honest with you, the first reason I started was like, okay, I'm making rugby money. How can I make money outside of it? So that was kind of like, okay, how can I build financial stability while I'm playing rugby and after? Legacy-wise, just for my family and my friends and myself to be financially stable so that I have something when I'm not getting that rugby salary from playing. And then after a while, just getting into the sport and realizing the effect that had on people, and how much support I was getting from people that I didn't know, that had never met me before, and was just going off of who they saw me on social media as. So with social media, it was just really important for me to show my authentic self and express who I was on a day-to-day basis, not just on the field or what articles and different podcasts were broadcasting about me. And just noticing how many people were attracted to how authentic and humorous and real I was. It was just motivation to give back to them. So like I started doing giveaways because I've received so much from rugby, just from the sport and the people in general. So I was like, okay, what's a way that I can give back? Social media is perfect for that, where you can reach so many people around the world that you couldn't do in person. So just doing giveaways and trying to give back to people after receiving all these things that I can't use. So why not give it to somebody who can use it and who would appreciate it a lot more than I could in that moment. So the giveaways were really important for me. And then just with Instagram, I kind of pushed over to YouTube because I've always been a very open and loud and funny and humorous person. So I just wanted to express that in a longer form versus like a 1-minute video on Instagram. I could do it in like 8 minutes on YouTube. And one of the things I did on YouTube is just like ab videos, which I thought were fun because everybody always talks about their summer body and things like that. So I thought that would be something that was attractive to my audience. So that was something that I started that I got a lot of good attention for. And then along with that, I started doing the hot seat with Naya Tapper because I wanted the world to not only know who I was, but also who my teammates were off the field. A lot of them may not have the want to be quote unquote famous or like known around the world. So sorry. So I took the initiative to introduce them to the world and show them who they are off the field. So that was something fun that I started. So just kind of building a legacy for myself, a name for myself, and a way for people to be attracted to me. There's so many rugby players, but there's not many Naya Tappers. Things like that, something that makes you stand out and just shows that you care. That was something that was really important for me after a while. So just like financial stability and giving back to the rugby community and just getting more outreach to the people who don't know what the sport is, don't know who I am, and a lot of the other amazing players that I get to play against and with.
No, and I'm a big like you have no. It's something that I try and keep preaching, and it's even works to what I try and do even with my channel because of the fact that personalities, especially in the U.S., is a driver. Like people need to have a reason to come see everything, and so much always goes back to watch the game and then you like it, and it's like no, people don't really work that way. There's like we like the person. Then let me go see what it is that they're doing on that.
Absolutely, yeah.
So kind of backtracking so we get a little bit more on the person. So for you, you know, you've told this story a bunch, but you know what? Again, we're gonna go through it again. We play it like a Batman origin stories. You know, how did you get started with rugby? What was your process into it?
Yeah. So I didn't know what rugby was until high school. They had it at my high school, but I was running track and field, so I didn't have the opportunity. I didn't take the opportunity to play then. We had a math teacher who was a white male, and he was working at a predominantly minority Black Hispanic school. So it was weird in general for rugby to be at that school with just how rugby was looked at in the past of it being a majority European sport. I grew up playing football, so when I learned that it was at the high school, I was like, oh, okay, that's kind of cool. It'd be something I'd be interested in, but because I was so dedicated to track and field in that moment, and because of the stereotype of rugby being such an injury sport, my coach didn't think it was a good idea. So I didn't start playing until I got to UNC Chapel Hill in college. I went there for academics. So I kind of missed the sport aspect. So I decided to join the club rugby team that we had at UNC. I played for them for the whole 4 years, but my first 2 months playing, just being athletically skilled and speed, it put me above a lot of the other players in terms of I didn't really need to know the skills then. So just in that aspect, I was invited to a rugby camp in California. And specifically for speed, even when I went to that camp, it was like, okay, how fast is she? We'll teach her everything else. But because I had just started school, I just wanted to focus on finishing that. My plan was never to be a professional rugby athlete. It was just something to keep me active, something to gain a friend group. So playing for those 4 years was amazing. College was great. But eventually, as I continued to get better in the sport and see the different things that rugby could get me into, I was invited to another camp again my last year of college. So I went to that camp, was offered a contract, and decided to take it. So I had to miss my last year of college, my last semester of college on campus, but I finished it online while living in Chula Vista, training at the center. So I was there for 4 months under a great coach, Julie. And after being with her, we got a new coach, Richie. Worked with him for a little bit, but he noticed the flaws in that I was kind of a one-trick pony. I was only fast, didn't really have the skills to be up there with those other girls who had worked so hard to get there, being a whole player. So he let me go, but didn't let me go in terms of like, this is the sport for you, but this could be the sport for you, but I need you to work on these things. So I'm going to put you in this developmental environment to get better as a player so that when you come back, you're up to par with the other girls and that you're contributing rather than hindering. So for about 4 months, I worked on my passing and other different skills for rugby, and he brought me back, and then it's kind of been uphill from there.
Yo, I love it. And you know what? A lot of that, you can tell obvious within the journey. You can feel the ups and downs, even in the way you speak. Like, you can feel the ups and downs, but that's kind of part of the process of getting to a point, and especially the surprise of it. I remember, obviously, we talked whenever you were at UNC, and I was starting to cover the South around that same time. This was 2014, 2015 is whenever you kind of were kicking into that, right? About that time? Yeah. And so, like, I remember just hearing, like, oh, man, there's this chick, Naya Tapper, and she's just, like, a beast, and she's going through. And it was like, oh, cool. All right, yeah, let's go. And then the next thing you hear is, like, oh, Naya's with USA Rugby Women. It's like, oh, shoot. Yo, that's dope. Recognize itself. And then it was like, Naya disappeared. And it's like, yo. It's like, yo, wait, what just happened? And then they appeared again. It's like, self-recognize again. So it was really interesting, even from the outside perspective, just kind of what was going in tow with that. But it seems to be, obviously, when it comes to people who are athletically gifted, and look, obviously, I doing HBCU Rugby Classic, and look, we as Black rugby players, and I know Black, Jamaican, Puerto Rican for you as well. So within that element, there can be a bit of a condensing expectation when it comes to athleticism, and as long as it's within that, it's like, yo, we just play that. You'll do all the domination from there, but it takes away a little bit of that respect for the sport itself, and then at the same time, a little bit off of the player, because it's like, yo, you don't need to learn it. It's like, nah, I kind of do need to learn the rest of this. So it's dope that you had that. For you, like, going through this 4 months where you were really going through the developmental squad, like, what was that situation like for you? Because you got to see the top of the mountain, per se, and then it's just like, yo, we're gonna kick you out from underneath your legs, or at least assume it. And then it's like, yo, you're gonna go back. Like, what was that like those moments for you like?
Obviously it was humbling. Like I said, just growing up in sports in general, I never really had to try hard. It just came naturally. So to get to a new sport and have been doing really well in it through college, and then to get to a higher level and they say, you're not really that good, then it's kind of like a smack in the face, but it's like also an eye opener. So I think that was just a really good mountain that I needed to climb, and it made me the player I am today. It showed me adversity, and it prepared me for the things that I had to deal with up to now, and the things that I'm going to have to deal with in the future, whether in sport or just in life in general. But it was good because I wasn't by myself. There were other girls there too as well who were getting better. So it was motivating. It wasn't lonely. The coaches were amazing, and I got better really fast. One of the coaches who taught me how to pass is our current coach now. So it's like a circle. Right. So like eventually it's like, okay, now that I'm here now, like I understand why everything happened. It all makes sense now. So now just going forward, it's like everything happens for a reason.
Hindsight becomes 2020 in that sense. That's 100%.
Yeah.
So, so you have this, you've had this sporting background. You go to a great school. As much as I might, want to hate on UNC because you guys talk a lot. This basketball thing is getting a little much for me now. No. But no, you have a great academics. You have a great background, but in all, like, where's the personality? Has that just always been a component? Was it something that is like you were like, you know what? As I'm getting older, I kind of want to interact with people more, and let me just show my personality more, or is it like this is what I was from the moment that I came out the womb, and we're just giving myself more and more platforms to be able to take advantage of this?
Yeah, I think it was definitely how I was from out the womb. If you meet my mom, I'm exactly like her. If you meet any of my siblings or family members, they'll tell you I was the annoying one, I was the loud one, I was the one, just the active one. I just had a lot of energy. And I think just coming into a new environment, a professional environment at that, you kind of get closed off a little bit. You don't want to express yourself too much and just seem like too much. Like in that moment, it's like, okay, rugby, rugby, rugby. And you kind of forget to just chill and have fun and be yourself. You're around new girls and it's competitive. So it's hard to get comfortable and be yourself. So just earning my spot on the team and getting comfortable with the girls that I'm around and feeling like I can be myself around them. I think that allowed me to be like, okay, now I can show social media. Like my friends back home, my family, like they know who I am. But like I said, you get into that competitive environment, it's a little intimidating and you feel like you can't be expressful. But as I got comfortable with the girls, now I can be. So now that's kind of something that I push on the new girls that are coming in, is I try to be myself around them so that they feel like they can be themselves around us.
Yeah, man, it sets it up for the leader. It sets it up as a leader within it, and especially gives them a much better standard to be able to work off of. Because again, you even the more that you're even able to express yourself in the right way in person, it's gonna play out on the field, and I just think that
Absolutely.
bonding plays
Yeah,
so much.
absolutely.
Like to be able to see that. So like I said, I'd always been a big advocate, and it was one of my favorite things about you on social media as well, because it was just like, yo, she's swagging out, like bring that full swag. All right, let's go. But then whenever I found out you were Jamaican and Puerto Rican, I was like, okay, this is just in the
Makes
like,
sense. Yeah.
this is a super mix right here. The only thing I was just waiting to see was just like this little bit of Nigerian to come in, and I've been like, it came full circle. I got Let's go.
Yeah.
Oh, so for you, obviously, the burst of personality comes out, but it's interesting how it's used. You bring it in fashion wise, you bring it in athletically, you bring it in skit wise. So for you, like, what's the thought process whenever you're going through these moments of expression? Like, what's the fashion style set up, and what you're going on, because it really creates a normalization
Yeah.
of it for, I think, the social media wise, and which is good because feels much more approachable.
hmm I think it's just confidence for me. Like, I think that I look good in honestly everything that I put on. I think that everything that comes out my mouth is funny, whether people agree or not. So that's kind of how I go about what I
Oh,
post. I don't really, I mean, there is really not a thought process. It's just what comes out is what it is for me. Everybody knows I'm pretty blunt. And if you ever want to hear an honest opinion, you come to Naya because she's going to tell you the truth. And just in general with fashion, like I just kind of go off like what my friends think is hot, or like what's hot in the fashion community, and just like whatever I put on it, whatever, if it makes me feel good, then that's what I'm gonna wear. And like I said, just the confidence of, if I think it looks good, I'm gonna wear it and I'm gonna post it. And confidence is so much more fashionable than anything that you put on. So I think that's mainly it for me, is that I think that everything I do and say and just everything I do and say is great. So if you have that type of confidence, everybody's going to be attracted to that because that's what everybody wants is that confidence, a high self-esteem.
I agree. I agree.
Yeah.
And, I love it. And I always will say it because it really is admirable. Let's taking it into an even serious. I think whenever it comes with, whenever you see a prominent black woman who is athletic and is showing all the sides, it's about range so that people can see everything that they can present and it's okay and it's not contracted. I think it's important. It goes longer than just obviously just what happens on you, but how you project it is just like,
Yeah.
yo, we can be real across the board. So I always give credit on that one. One of the funniest things that I like seeing with that on social media though is you and Carlin. Like even like this sibling style relationship is probably one of the funniest things. But listening to your story, like I sense a lot of similarities into the way both of you guys entered into the league. So tell us, like, how did that relationship kind of come to being, and where has it become to this point?
Yeah. For Carlin, I knew about him at the end of my college year, and when I came out there, everybody kind of knew who Carlin was. He went viral for being the fastest man in rugby, and I'm like, okay, that's cool. So then, when I got to the center, he had a stigma where people thought that he was uptight, cocky, strong-minded, just not a very open person that you could go walk up to and say, hi, my name is blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, okay, interesting. So I took the initiative to figure out who he really was. And he turned out to be the complete opposite. Like, he's so caring, so funny. He knows how to have a great time. I think we meshed immediately and so well because of the similarities that we have just in personality, where one thing I admire about him that he has more than me is his confidence. Like I said, whatever he puts on, he thinks he's the best dressed, even if he's not. And I try to tell him, he thinks he's an amazing singer. He honestly thinks that he can do anything in the world and that he can do it at the highest level. And to have that type of confidence is admirable. And that's somebody that you want to be around. And also, he just likes to have a good time, and he's funny and he's authentic as well. And I think there's a lot of misconception behind him, and I think that he gives so much, and it's not seen enough how much he gives to the sport, to the people, and to just his friends and family. He's such a caring person. So we clicked automatically. We hang out all the time. We always have a good time. I think that's why we like being around each other so much, is that after those hard rugby training days when you don't really want to talk to somebody and you can just call up Carlin and hang out and watch movies and not even have to talk to each other, but just being around each other is just a good vibe. And everybody wants to have good people around him, and he's definitely good people. So best friend, love him. He's amazing.
Oh, and that's really good because again, it does get tough. I know on those days between you travel, you're working, you're doing pressers, you're trying to take care of personal life, you're trying to take care of family, like all of it can be very all encompassing and very draining. So to be able to have people that you can relate to has to help so much within that. But how does that even affect the way that you train and stuff like that? Because we see his videos, this dude just training and training. He's out here trying to
I
make us
know.
excuses. We're just like, bro, do we really need to do this to get fast? And he's like, no, I can't even get that fast doing this. But yeah, thanks for showing me what I will not be doing. But no. But like for you, like all that he's doing, like how does it impact the way that you train and prepare, or is it something that is just like you just like watching? You're like, yo, good job, Carlin. I'm gonna go somewhere else with this.
Yeah. But I think majority of the time it is like, okay, like you're always doing something. Like you need to sit down and relax, give your body a rest. You always complaining you're tired, but you're always on go. But it's so admirable because he's so dedicated to it and he's so disciplined in certain aspects of the sport. And that's admirable. It's inspiring. And on the days where I don't feel like doing anything, you see him up at 5 a.m. in the morning doing sprint drills, just consistently, constantly trying to get better. He's the fastest man in the world, and he's still trying to get faster. Like, you don't really see anybody else doing that. And I just think it's amazing. Most of the days I'm like, great job, Carlin. You do what you got to do, and I'll go sit over here and take a nap. But other days, like, we do have those real conversations of, Naya, like, you need to work on these skills, or you need to get better at this. Like, you're good at this, but you could be better, and here's how. And I know, like, if there's ever anything I need to get better at, he'll tell me. Or if I ever need a reality check, he'll be the one to tell me. And likewise, me for him as well.
That's good. Keep yourselves in check in a lot of ways.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, one thing I really do enjoy talking to people about when it comes to rugby is the fact that the opportunity that comes from it, especially when it comes to travel. All right. Now, you have a military background, so mobility is within your scope.
Yeah.
But, whenever you started playing rugby, the extent that you have traveled, did you expect in such a short time to literally hit all corners of the world in that time? Like, what has that been like for you?
It's definitely been eye-opening. I've been immersed in so many different cultures in a small amount of time. So I kind of have created this mentality of no judgment zone, because after being in all those different places where you have this stereotype of what it's supposed to be like, and then you get there and it's something completely different, it's like, okay, now anytime I'm going into a situation, I'm going to have an open mind, because you never know until you're in that situation what it will be like. I think it's just been fun for myself, and then for my family and friends to see all the cool places I've been going, and then for them to be like, oh, like, maybe I want to go out the country and go to these places, or let's go on vacation and go somewhere new. Like, now my idea of vacation is somewhere out of the country versus somewhere in the States. And just back home with my family and friends, their mindset wasn't always the case for that. A lot of them haven't been out the country. So now just to see me traveling the world, it's a little less scary for them. So I think that's been the biggest effect that I've had, is just the people back home who haven't been able to be exposed to that type of environment, culture, and that type of travel, just to see that they can also go to those places too.
Yeah, no, I get that. I remember, like, so I started being able to go out, like, Asia is my kicker off for, like, playing rugby overseas. So I've done this over the course of since 2016. And so I remember one place that I thought was not going to be like that. I went to Vietnam, right? And literally prior to going, I'd always had this thought. I was like, man, Vietnam must still be like mad war torn.
Yeah.
Like, I watched Rambo. I mean, I know that was Burma, but like Burma's like right next to Vietnam. So it must be like jungle, bombs still everywhere. Like, people living, but you live within your struggles,
Yeah.
And then you go out there and you're like, oh, this place is like, it was really quiet. I was like, this is really dope. The one thing I will say is especially when it comes to Southeast Asia, like, Southeast Asia was, for me, one of the safest places I've ever been. Could never live there as a result of that. I require a little bit of danger in my life. I feel like I was gonna get soft with, like, not having that right destiny. But it was just like, you go out and you're like, yo, nobody does anything. They're so nice. Everyone's so nice. So, like, whenever you talk about, like, that open-mindedness, it wasn't even like I expected bad things, because, I've traveled before, but it's like, what you're shown is so inaccurate to what is truly out there.
Absolutely.
It is wild how inaccurate it is, and so it's interesting to be able to say it. I'm glad there's more confirmation bias, so people understand. Leave the country every once in a while. Flex that passport.
Get a passport.
Yes. Oh, people underestimate. Yo, this U.S. passport, man, it'll get you into a lot of places without getting this visa. Yo, take advantage.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you have the chance to be able to travel. You've now gotten this encompassed. I'm gonna come back to the brand situation again, because this is where we go into people have an outside look
how athletes work within the scope. So there's the assumption of, man, once you've gotten to this level, man, you've made it. Like, how could you not have? You've got blah blah blah. You got all the views. People see you, which means they must be showering you with money and sponsorships and blah blah blah. And you know, as the athlete, there's a reality that comes into it. For you, you know, what has been the process of working to get to this goal of establishing the legacy? You obviously talk about Instagram and YouTube, but like, what has it been in totality for you? Uncover the sheets, I guess, a little bit.
Yeah. I think just the word legacy in general for me is the impact you leave on other people,
Mm-hmm.
financial stability, and then I guess the impact you leave on what you're doing. So, like the rugby community. Um, Financially, it's been an upwards mountain, which is great. Um, the better of a player you become, the more you get paid. The better of a team you become, the more bonuses you get. Um, the more attractive you are as a player in person, the more sponsors you get, the more money you get. It all comes down to that,
Right.
basically. And then just how that's basically how it's been for me of, okay, how do I keep getting better as a player to get my contract increased? How do I make myself better as a player to make the team better so that we get more bonuses? And then how do I make myself more attractive? How do I create this brand to where sponsors will say, we want to work with this girl, we want to work with rugby, and not even we just want to work with Naya, but we want to work with all her teammates as well. So not only opening the door for myself, but also the rugby girls that I'm with now and the girls in the future coming up. And also just showing love to the girls who maybe didn't have that opportunity, who started all this stuff before I got here to allow me to be able to do what I'm doing now. Um, Also, just like, sorry, I lost my thought.
All the rugby girls that you've been that have set the pathway and doing what you're doing now.
Yeah, with building the brand part and then with also giving back to the community, I think that has a big impact of how you affect others and how you make them feel. So just trying to use social media in that sense of messaging back people when they DM me. I think that's been a big response of, oh my God, I can't believe you messaged me back. And it's like, of course, like I'm just Naya. Like I'm not LeBron or anything. So it's kind of just trying to realize that in the rugby world, maybe you are that Serena Williams or that LeBron or things like that. And just trying to use that to your advantage and not take it to the head too much.
Right.
So just finding that financial stability, being able to build my brand to leave an effect on the sport, and hopefully getting into the Hall of Fame and just knowing that when I'm gone, my name will still forever be in the rugby community as somebody who did some form of accomplishment. And that's just trying to get better every day in training to make sure that I can become the all-time try scorer of USA Rugby and have that standard so high that it lasts for a while before I get knocked out.
Trying to Usain Bolt this thing. I got you.
Yeah, basically. And then just being able to, if I want to, work anywhere in the rugby community after I'm not playing anymore. I think that's really important. So if any athlete hasn't started their brand yet, and you want to have a legacy, you want to have an impact in the sport or job, whatever that you're doing, who you are as a person is just as important, if not more important than what you're doing in your job or on the field, on the court, anything like that.
Yeah, and I'm glad you mentioned it even in that, and because you know there's always that old motto of you have to what is it you can't be kind in business, and you to be able to get up you have to kind of like
Stomp on other
cutthroat
people.
and step on
Yeah,
people and stuff like that. And
yeah,
I'm glad because it is becoming more and more true. Like really, especially whenever it's in an industry that is remarkably small, and so the interconnections kind of can spread between people very quickly.
yeah,
What your character is as a person really is going to stand out, and it's going to sit significantly because we no longer live in that I can be a quiet diva or mysterious diva or anything like that. Like, people are going to expose you and they're going to put it out nice and loose.
Absolutely. Yep. So do it to yourself before they do it to you.
Facts. Lean in.
So you
Lean
have
in.
control of it. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But even whenever you talk about like, yo, you don't see yourself as a LeBron or anything like that. And while maybe at a financial level it might not be there, but you're right, at an influential, like, I could make the argument that in the world within sevens, you're talking about and no cap or anything like that, but it's like a top 5, top 10 at your position. You're talking about within the Portia Woodman. You're talking about with your own teammate Chris. You're talking about Emily Scarrett, even though I know she's center, but still, it's like you're talking about these names that, especially in the last 3-4 years, especially after the Women's Rugby World Cup, which was dope, by the way.
Thank you.
Like that I think sets a level of like expectation where people are like, oh snap, like, yo, they can really play. Like, it doesn't have that feel of like, well, it's women's. It's no,
Yeah.
it's like, yo, they really playing out here. They're
Yeah.
really smashing people out here. But and so it does make your name has that prominence that goes into it. So
Yeah.
that awareness is in it for it. Like, who would have known? Who would have known?
Who would have known?
Who would have known?
It's crazy. You have a plan for your life and it goes to a completely different route, which is probably better than what you planned for it to be. I think that was something that was important for me to realize, because my life was always, you're going to do this, then you're going to do this, then you're going to do this. And then something random came and I'm like, why not? And then it worked out.
Look, I do believe like one of the most dangerous and most beneficial phrases that are ever out there is like, F it, why not?
Yeah.
Because it can go in either direction.
Life is short.
Right. But you're right. You never know what it is. I'll even take it with me with doing this. I knew I always wanted to do business. Like, there was always that idea of like, oh, I'm going to do business. I get it. This one works for me. What the business is? Who really knows? And, I didn't know, like, when I first knew about rugby, I legitimately thought it was, like, fencing. In the sense of, like, it's that archaic sport that people still do. Like, they're just like, oh, you do rugby? Oh, you do old-time football.
Or polo or field hockey, everything but rugby.
Everything but rugby,
Yeah.
So it was just like, you don't realize it. Then you get into it, and then you start to see, especially you start to see where the gaps are, and you're like, yo, we could fill in these gaps. Like, why hasn't anybody filled in these gaps? And then all of a sudden you're like, okay, maybe I'll do it, but I'm pretty sure someone else is already doing it. And you don't realize how much it really is impacting. So, it's unforeseen, but the ride can be arduous. But when you look back, you're like, yo, this was legitimate work. Yeah. All right.
Absolutely.
So I got one more thing for you. One more little tidbit for you before. Obviously, I have to let you go take care of these errand, like this multitask life.
Thank you.
Obviously, we're trying to get you down here for the HBCU Rugby Classic, and we're all about representation, and a lot of this has been developed in the sense of being able to create this opportunity for other Black and brown women, so they're Black and brown people, so that it's not in what many people will context as a white boy sport, quote.
Yes.
And you open it up. So for you, obviously, you've dropped a lot of gems across this little conversation we've had. But for you, as a representative woman within the rugby sport at an elite level, what is it outside of just like what the gameplay and how to play it? But what is it that you feel that kids, parents, doubters that don't think that they have a place in this sport, what would you say to them that this sport can offer them that would, provide positive value for them?
Yeah. Just in general, this sport is a very accepting sport. It's consumed of all different types of people, different cultures, different religions, different backgrounds. So the sport is for everybody, and it'll allow you to come into it and be confident with who you are, because you know you won't be judged for it, that you'll be accepted for it, you'll be praised for it. It's also for all different types of body types, and you can't really say that about any other sport. So when I say that rugby is for everybody, it's literally for everybody. Opportunity wise, it'll allow you to travel the world, experience different cultures, go to new places, try new things that you never thought you'd try, new foods, listen to new music, do different activities. And you meet so many different people who play rugby who it isn't their main job. So just the networking part of it is amazing. Like, you can meet somebody who is an Olympian, or you can meet somebody who is the CEO of another business who may be 58 years old and is still playing rugby. The age ranges from 2 to 3 to 80 if it allows them. It's just a very loving sport. It gives back to you in such great ways. It gives you confidence in being Black. It gives you confidence in being white. It gives you confidence in being Hispanic, heavy set, skinny, muscular, toned. It just is a very accepting sport. So if you want to be around people who will accept you for who you are and you never have to act any other way, this is the sport for you.
Oh, I love it. That's pure mic drop right there. Pure mic drop. I'm loving it. But Naya, man, I really do appreciate you just taking the time, getting to allow us to enjoy and hear some of these gems. And like I keep saying, I can't wait to see you here in 2 weeks.
2
I'm just keep
weeks.
putting it out there. 2 weeks. We got to. We got
Yeah.
to schedule open. So, no, but
That
thank
will.
you so much, for real.
Thank you for having me. The questions are great. Great podcast. Really good.
Appreciate it.
Grow Rugby. Grow Rugby.